Welcome back to the studio. The air is getting a little bit chillier, so I know fall isn't far behind. And that is a perfect time for me to pull out an autumnal project. I've been wanting to do this for the last couple of years, and I think part of the problem, part of the thing that kept making me not do it, is I thought it was smaller. And that's the problem sometimes when you see the box and you don't pay attention to the sizing. It just, in my head anyway, I got the idea that this was a much smaller project than what it is. You can see here from the printed pattern that it is a pretty good size, what would be like a panel. But I'm finally going to get it done this time before Halloween. But I'm also going to try doing something else. I'm not just going to make the applique today. I'm going to try and flesh it out a little bit more when it gets finished. I took the kit with me to my local quilt shop, and I pulled some fabric that I could use to flesh out the panel a little bit more. I'm not going to do anything complicated. I'm just going to add different kinds of little add-ons to make the border bigger, just to make it more of a wall quilt. So I'll be doing that once we get the panel done today. So I have a couple of those, I have a couple of videos that I want to do in the next few days, and then I'm going to be shifting back to doing some more of the beginning videos. Some of the paper pantos and stuff, that's what we'll be shifting to. But it always takes me a while to get videos lined up to do, so it takes a while for me to shift. Anyway, as I said, we're going to be working on this today. This is called Ghost Town, and it's in the dots, daisy dots. And so I'm going to pull you a little bit closer. I've already pulled out my paper pattern, and I also have chosen a background fabric. It's funny, far away it almost looks like it's got different color dots, but all the dots are just black. It's a white background with little black dots, so it should be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and pull you in closer. I'll get out my light box and I'll start pulling out the parts, and I'm sure it's likely that maybe some of the pieces in here might need to be ironed if they were folded to put in the kit, but we'll talk about all of that when we get in closer. Today I'm starting off a little bit different, and that is because these little window boxes were confounding me. When I had the background fabric on the master pattern, the placement guide, I really couldn't get these to line up where they were making sense. And I figured by the time I got the orange from the building on the white background, I wouldn't be able to see anything. So I was just going to put the house on there and then put these on there, but I still didn't think I was going to be able to figure these position of these pieces out, because you could rotate them into so many different combinations. So I just have a piece of printing paper that I laid on top of the pattern, and what I'm going to do is just peel the paper backing off, because all of these pieces are repositionable and they're just tacky long enough that I can put them in place, and that this paper will just act as a placement guide. So when I do put my background fabric in and my house down, I'll know exactly what position each of these windows went in. They'll be a little bit crooked right now, but I'll straighten them out when I get them onto the building. So as long as I keep each page on the right side of the fabric, I'll know exactly where they go. Sometimes you can get away with moving things around a bit, and probably you could have with these also, but the angles on these are so precise at being off that it makes it really look like a haunted house, that I really wanted to get them right. So that's why I took the time. I'll also say that two things. One is that looking at them upside down which shouldn't have mattered. I couldn't get them. Couldn't get it until I came around to the front of the table. And the other thing is, when you are, and you is the royal you, when you're videotaping, some of your higher brain functions, I think, don't work. It was hard to troubleshoot because you're worried about talking and other elements that are going on just besides the problem in front of you. So I can't always figure something out and try and videotape. There's too many monkeys at the circus at that point. So now once these papers are done, I can just move them to the side and I'll know exactly what rotation each of these squares is at and where each one went on the page. So that's going to be a real help. So I can just now move these 2 pages off to the side, and when I get the houses in there, I can just bring these back over and know exactly where each square went and what rotation to put it in. This looks a little bit more normal in the way that I'd usually start. I have my paper pattern on the light box, and I've given it a dry iron just to get out any creases in the paper from it being folded in the packaging. I don't want those creases to translate into a misplacement of one of the pattern pieces. We also have a color cover sheet that helps us place any of the pieces that might be similar size but different colors. And I find that really helpful in many cases. So I'll put that aside. And again, I put my window pieces on a piece of paper with the paper backing off, because I can just peel these off now when I get the houses in place. And I've placed some of the elements close to where they go. And I'm going to put some of the items in place. And I'm going to start with a circle. You can see the whole process is peel, place, and press. So I'm just going to peel off the paper backing. And I'm going to put on some of these underneath items first. And I'm going to move these aside for a second, because what I'm going to do is flip back the fabric, and I'm going to put in place this house. Because these are a little bit harder to see once we get 2 layers of fabric down. So I'm going to peel off that paper backing and put it right onto the house. And again, these are repositionable if you've made a mistake in where you put something. This is my little doorknob. And my window. Once I get these on, I'm going to go ahead and do the windows. This is a lot better than twisting and turning, trying to figure out where these pieces go, which was what I was doing in the beginning. Every once in a while we get a pattern that has pieces that are looks simple, but it's just they're very similar in shape, and it's hard to figure out which one goes where. This is just one of those cases, and I just thought the paper idea was a good way to get them exactly where they were supposed to go. This one's maybe just a tiny bit off. There. So now I can go ahead and lift the house up and put that back over. Looks like my porch came off. Now I can put the whole house on in one piece. I have my other windows there. Now we have a spooky bat. Can't have a haunted house without at least one bat flying around your head. I live in an old colonial house. It was built in the late 1800s, and at least 3 times since I've lived here, I've had bats in the house. Of course, they always wait until you are in bed in your underwear before they come in, and then they start flying around your bedroom. And catching bats to get them out of the house is not an easy task. Usually it takes me about 30 to 40 minutes before I actually catch it. And then my heart rate is up. It takes me a while to go to sleep then. Every noise after that, you think there's another bat in the house. Loads of fun, let me tell you. I think they come through the chimney somehow. Okay, I'm going to put the boo on. That one's going to be we get that done so it won't be flopping around. My trick to catching bats in the house is to get a bath towel that is damp, not wet, and I use that to try to capture the bat. It helps to kind of it gives a little weight to the towel so you can move it a little faster and you can catch the bat that way. That's what I've done anyway. So let's see. This is we'll do this house now with its windows. Some people may look at something and say, I don't know why you couldn't figure that out. It's the same as this or the same as that. But sometimes people don't see things the same way as you. And I think I did that one backwards. Somehow my paper got upside down. Okay, so we have that done. Can move back to here. Make sure that we get it right next to this house. And we'll put our door in. When I find my red or my green dot, I'll put the other door handle in. Let's see. Whenever I'm confused about a piece, I always go on to the next pieces and figure out everything else. I leave whatever's left to the last, and usually when there's only one or two things left, it helps my mind figure out the last thing. Whatever was confusing about it usually clears up. I like these Gothic style roofs on here. This is how, doesn't matter if it's pizza or pie, this is how I usually cut the slices. This is my slice, and this might be the slice I cut for my mom. It's a little bit smaller. And this is the slice I might cut if I have a friend over. But mine is big because I like pizza and pie. So I'm going to take these 2 or 4 pieces and just figure out how they go on here. And just move them like that over to the side. I'm going to turn off the studio light and put these 4 pieces in place. I should have moved this off the background as well. Well, I still could do that. These pieces are all repositionable. So, there. I can see that now. This is just one of the issues about multiple layers. Sometimes you just have to remove the background to get a piece in place. Then you can put that compound piece back, and you know that you've got all your pieces in the right place. And it looks like somewhere I'm still missing my door handle, but I'll look on the floor and on my stomach. A lot of times I lean over the table and my belly picks up one of the pieces. So now that that is done, I can pick this up. Everything's flopping. Okay, everything but the doorknob. So let me look around the floor, and in the meantime, I'm going to move my light box and get out the Teflon pressing sheet, and we can get on to fusing before I lose anything else. I found my doorknob. It was on the floor, upside down, and so it was almost whitish, kind of matched my floor. So it took me a minute. Well, all my pieces are in place. They're still repositionable, but they are tacky enough to stick to the background. But now we're going to go ahead and turn them into a permanent fusible applique. And to do that, we're going to have some component of moisture, water, steam. Just like concrete requires water to set up, Steam-A-Seam 2 also requires that water component. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I use a dry iron always in the studio, is I'm going to apply my moisture via a spritz bottle. If you don't apply the moisture, the applique will still stick, but it's not going to be as permanent. And if you want to put this through the washer and the dryer and have it last for many years, really needs to have the moisture added to it. If you get gumming on your needle as you're top stitching or as you're quilting, that's an indication that you didn't fuse properly. Either not with moisture, not with steam, not with the spray bottle, or not long enough, not hot enough. So those are indications that your fusing process wasn't completely correct. Some people think that if you iron it too long, you're going to evaporate the Steam-A-Seam, and that is not possible. The Steam-A-Seam 2 is not going to just evaporate into the ether because you've ironed it too long. Your fabric would burn up before that process would happen. Remember, we have to give the iron time to get through this layer of Teflon pressing sheet, and then it has to get through each of these layers, so the green, the black, the white, and then the background. Plus there's a layer of fusible behind the green, the black, and the white. So that's 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. So that's 6 layers between above the background. So we really want that heat to be able to permeate through all of that. And after you get done fusing from one side, we recommend that you flip the block over and repeat this entire process again, just to make sure that the moisture was able to penetrate all the way through to the back fusible pieces and get those wet as well, and activate this Steam-A-Seam there as well. I like using the Teflon pressing sheet for many, many reasons. All of them help me. The Teflon pressing sheet acts as a protecting agent for the iron and the project. The Teflon pressing sheet prevents anything that's on my iron sole plate from getting onto my background or my applique pieces. It also would keep anything like a Steam-A-Seam 2 that might be on the edge of an applique from getting onto my sole plate. It protects the fabric from ever getting scorched by the iron. If I had it in place just a little too long, the Teflon pressing sheet would prevent that. It also protects the edges of the applique, because I tend to be lazy at times and I will just push the iron side by side, and I've done that on a project and it catches the edge of the applique with the edge of the sole plate, and it crinkles up the applique underneath the sole plate, and it's fusing it in a crinkled way, and then it ruins the project, which after you've spent all this time and money is not the ideal outcome. every once in a while, if you find you've made a mistake right away, you can get it hot again with the iron, and sometimes if you're lucky you can peel it off and put it back into position and refuse it. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. I've had both success and failure with that mission. But I'm going to go ahead and complete ironing this, and then I'm going to flip the block over and I will continue fusing it again from the back. As I said earlier, I wanted to go ahead and add on a little bit to this block just to show you what you can do with something. Treat it kind of just like we would a panel once you have an applique finished. And I went to my local quilt shop and just grabbed a couple things. Of course, I always like to grab dots when we're working with the dots. And so I have, this is the first thing I got, but I think I'm going to hold off to use that as the binding. It's kind of unimaginative. These two are going to kind of work in conjunction. This I think I'm going to use as a sashing in a couple times, and this is going to be like an outer border. So the thing that I would talk about here is what's your outcome that you want. Right now this piece is landscape oriented, and I kind of envisioned it more as horizontal. So if I wanted to keep it the way it was, I would keep all four borders the same. If I wanted to make it more horizontal, I could add pieces to the top and bottom and not much on the side, and that would continue the horizontal look of it. No, onto the two sides. That would make it continue on the horizontal. If I wanted to make it more of a vertical, I would add to the top and bottom and then do equal borders around the side. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm adding to the top and bottom, and I'll do sashing around this, add something to the top and bottom, and then do sashing again, and then a border. I think it will make sense when you see it. But I'll show you different steps, and I'm not going to use any great measurements or any great math. I'm going to do probably 1.5 inch cut, or 1 inch cut maybe even, sashing around this block, and all the sashing will be the same size out of the black dot. And then I'm going to use those two orange, I'm just going to divide it by 3 blocks. I'm going to use 2 here and 1 here, and then reverse it. Whatever was 2 down there will be 1 up here. So it'll be very basic, but it's just enough to add a little bit of interest to the border and a way to extend it to make it a little bit bigger for the holidays, and gives you another excuse to buy fabric, like we need one. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of ironing and a little bit of cutting so we can get started putting the sashings and those quick little pieces on. Okay, I've done a little bit of ironing and cutting, and you've seen the applique, and this is kind of what I'm doing in my little crazy sketch. This is the background block, and you can see there's a little bit of sashing. I've already gone ahead and done that. You can't see it on the black table, but you can see I cut 1 inch sashing strips with the black dot, so those are just going to be a 1/2 inch finished. And what I like to do when I'm cutting things and there's not a given size is take an element from the project itself, and so I measured these, and that's what gave me the idea for the sashing. A lot of times with the border, if the blocks are like 12 inches, then I know the maximum I'd ever do on the border would be 6. If the blocks were 10 inches, then the maximum would be a 5-inch block. I try and take something in the quilt itself to instruct my math if you're not already given sizes. So I have this inner border around the block already, and now I'm just going to do some of the two different fabrics that I have. They're just going to alternate across the bottom and top in this fashion, alternating as they go. And I've cut different sizes. They're all the same height but different widths. They'll alternate as they go across, and they'll have the same black sashing in between. And when I run out of space, I run out of space. They're going to be the exact same size as the width of this, including the sashing. And then when I get those on the top and bottom, as they are here, then I'll do the black sashing again around the whole piece. And then when that's done, then I'm just going to go ahead and put this on as my outer border. I think that's going to look all right, don't you? I know you all have seen me sew before, so that's no great thing. But all I'm going to do, I have two rows, the top row and the bottom row. So I've set up those two rows, and I have my pieces already lined up. They're just alternating pieces of the dot and the moon fabric. And I'm just going to be adding these on in a chain piecing fashion. And I cut my sashing a little bit longer than they needed to be, so I'm going to be careful about how I add those on. The only downside is that I'm going to get up after each two pieces and iron those seams, because the sashing piece is only 1 inch wide to begin with, and so we want to make sure that we're getting that where it needs to go. It's a small piece. If it helps you to do it from the back so you can see the sashing, that's fine too. It really doesn't matter in this particular case. Either way works. So you can see now we have a big piece and a little piece, and this is just going to go, I'm going to continue this process until we get the two rows, and I'll show you what those look like after I get whole rows complete, and then we can attach them. You can see in my little diagram I have this pieced blocks and this strip piecing here. I didn't intend for it to be just 3 pieces. It was just a matter of what I needed to fill up the space. I tried 3, but the pieces were just too big. It was bigger than the elements that were in the applique. So I went with 5. I always try and do odd numbers. For some reason they just look better. So they say anyway, whoever they are. And I did them symmetrically, so they're same size top and bottom all the way across. And I also did them, these two are the same size and these two are the same size, up and below. So they're both finished. They're a little bit bigger than they need to be. The only thing I'm going to worry about is I'm going to center this strip onto this block, and I'm going to do the same down here. I'm going to center that, and then whatever is left over I'll trim off. And then again we're going to go around with the same black dot around as a sashing, and then we can get to that spider web border. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these and get those sewn on. Now that I have it pinned, all I have to do is zip it through the sewing machine. I have a B435, that's what I have here in the studio. It's a little bit smaller than the ones I used to get, but I used to work in a dealership and I used to get a discount. But this is a perfectly good machine. I don't do quilting on here, so I don't really need a big throat space for anything. I often think it's funny that as quilters we get talked into buying sewing machines that have, you know, hundreds of different decorative stitches, and all of these different functionality. But over the years, all I've ever used is a straight stitch. A few times a zigzag or a buttonhole. But all those decorative stitches, I never use them. A lot of them are like for smocking or doing something like that. A zigzag and a straight stitch, that's all I need. And we pay so much money for all those extra things. The one thing I think we all want, nobody can give us. And that's to be able to put a spool of thread in the bottom of the machine and never have to change a bobbin. My first Bernina was a 1008. It was a mechanical machine, and I kept it for a long time. I wish I'd kept it always. The only circuit board it had in it was to turn the power on. All the rest of it was mechanical, and those things will run a million years. There's really very little that can go wrong with it. That one little circuit board is just for the power. But I ended up giving it to my niece, and she does use it. But I just, because I've had other Bernina, and after a while the circuit boards go bad, and then that you can't replace the circuit board. And so, and it's the same with all brands. They stop making parts, and then you can't get them. So this is what it will look like. I already have done the bottom and trimmed the bottom. I haven't ironed the top yet, and I haven't trimmed the top. You can see it overhanging. But now what I'm going to do after I iron this and trim it here, I'm going to go ahead and do this black sashing here again around. I should have thought about this better, because I wanted it to go here. I'm going to have to figure out how I can do it, because I want it to be here also on the sides. I may have to unsew like a ½ an inch so I can sew a strip on there. Watch and see what I do. Well, yesterday, the whole end of my day, I got interrupted by a friend who stopped by and needed an hour and a half of counseling. So I don't know where I left off. So I have a different shirt, and my shirt even has bleach on it. This is the first time in all the years I've been doing laundry that I've gotten bleach on my clothes, and I don't even know how I did it. So I have the sashing all the way around my panel, and I've got my little doodads on the top and bottom. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my spiderweb border on. I don't really think it's going to be worth it to miter the corners, so I'm just going to do top and bottom and then the two sides. So I'm going to go ahead and put the borders on it, and then I can go ahead and call this finished. I didn't want to really add a ton on here. I just wanted to show you that you could add things on there. Even if you don't have fabric from the original applique, it's pretty easy to find fabric that match. And I used, well, they really hardly even could call them blocks. They're really just blocks, squares and rectangles. But you could do flying geese, you could do log cabin blocks, and you don't have to worry about math so much. If you were doing flying geese, you could do some flying geese and then just a rectangular block to fill the space, so that you don't have to do math where the blocks fit exactly. If you like the idea of that, you could look up round robin, about how people build out borders in a round robin. Because that's basically what they do. Somebody will do a centerpiece of a quilt, they'll hand it to another piece, and they will do a border around it, and then they'll hand it to another person, and they will do another area around that, and each person keeps trading theirs to the next person, and at the end you get yours back, and you have everybody else's work on your project. But the neat thing is to see all the creative ideas that people used to keep adding borders onto your quilt and making it grow. So that's just an idea to get inspiration for ways to grow some of your own quilts. Now this one was very, very basic, but I'm going to go ahead and put the two, either the two sides, the two top and bottom on, and then we can go ahead and get this finished. Because my point was to try and make this more vertical, I went ahead and put the top and bottom on first so that my longest pieces of the border would be the two sides. And I don't know that people would really see it, but subconsciously those strips are longer, and I'm hoping that it kind of elongates in their mind the whole piece. So I'm going to go ahead, I didn't miter it, but I am trying to match up a little bit. Like this corner has orange spider web, so I'm going to try and put this corner with the orange spider web as well. Now I know it's not going to match at the bottom also. That would be fortuitous if it did, but I'm not going to count on that. I'm being really picky there. I'm glad I pulled this out and really looked at the size, because in my mind this panel was always much smaller. I always thought if I made it, it was going to be like a pillow size. But often that's what happens when you just look at the picture and not the writing. A lot of times when people used to come to the booth for a show, they would pull out the paper pantos and they would see the little diagram on the end, which was just to show you what the design looks like. It's not the true size. I mean, nobody could actually sew that small. And they would always ask, is this the size of it? I mean, nobody could sew that small. So there we have it. You'll see I have to trim the bottom of the border there, but I'll also iron that. But that'll kind of wrap this up, which I know we're all waiting for. Whew. So this particular kit was called Ghost Town, and it comes in a kit. All of the pieces are laser cut and pre-fused. You basically get everything you see in that box on the cover sheet there. Very easy to do, and you saw in real time you could get it done. I think I got it done in 15 or 20 minutes, I don't know. And we have a whole catalog with the laser cut applique kits in there. There's a bunch to choose from, and there's a lot of really nice holiday ones. Those are kind of my favorite. But there's a lot of really cheerful ones, and I just don't know what I would do here in the studio without those. And they really are a fun project that you can knock out pretty quickly and not get bogged down with a really intricate pattern. So I'm really happy with this one, and this is just a super simple way to expand them a little bit. You could really get creative. Unfortunately, I don't always have the time to really invest a bunch of time in one particular video because we make a lot of them. Or I would have probably tried to do some flying geese or some log cabin blocks or some other things just to show you what those could have looked like. But I'm happy with the way this turned out. This is Ghost Town, and I like that it's a little bit bigger, a little bit more substantial, and I'm glad that we got it finished today without any more interruptions. So thanks for stopping by and watching me puddle around a little bit, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other.